Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host, Brandon Bateman, and today I'm joined by Jeff Meigs. Jeff is a strategist on our team and has worked with over 50 of our real estate investment clients. We're going to talk with him all about in-housing versus outsourcing your PPC. What makes the most sense for you in your situation?
All right.
How you doing today, Jeff?
Doing great. How about you?
Yeah, doing awesome. Thank you.
Great.
This is for anybody that doesn't know Jeff. He's one of our strategists. He works with many of our clients, and he's getting married really dang soon, right?
Yes.
How long to the wedding?
August 11th. So it's like a week and a half now?
A week and a half away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super
Soon to be the proud. What is it?
Proud
Stepfather.
stepfather of 4. Yep.
Yep.
I'm going from 0 to 4 all at once. So there's a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
But I'm super excited and really happy. I couldn't be happy right now. So
Yeah. Well, so I was going to rely on the rest of the episode to convince everybody why Jeff is a crazy person, but I guess you all know right now.
you now know you have to be crazy to be able to handle all of it, right?
Yeah.
All at once. But
Yeah.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely insane. I couldn't imagine it, but you do it with a smile, and I guess that's how we would describe your job too.
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah. Thank you.
really excited for our topic today. We're going to talk about in-housing versus working with an agency, basically different ways that you can get the job done when it comes to PPC specifically. And there are a lot of different layers of this and everything. And I know that you and I, Jeff, have both had experiences with this for better or worse, both ways. And there's a lot to talk about in the industry. You're going to find people that are speaking really bluntly about how you must do this one way or the other. And I don't want this episode to be like an echo chamber, Obviously we're an agency, and being an agency, I do believe that it's better for someone to work with an agency more often than not. We'll talk about some of the exceptions to that. And then also places where we might be wrong. So hopefully make this as balanced of a conversation as we possibly can. So kind of starting it off, Jeff, tell me about some of your experience or thoughts regarding what are some of the pros and cons of going in-house versus working with an agency?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about it, right? But I think there are some definite pros when it comes to being in-house. The most major one is just the amount of control you have over it. Everything that you do, you've done yourself. You know exactly how it works, right? If something isn't working right, you can either figure it out or look at it and say, oh, maybe it's this, and kind of go to work on it yourself. So a lot more control. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to working in-house. That and if there's any adjustments as far as location, you get it exactly right, exactly the way that you envisioned it, and not having to describe it to someone else, right? Because that's always the difficult part, is the translation sometimes. But when it comes to taking it to an agency, I feel like there's such more depth when it comes to just figuring something out and kind of understanding it yourself versus letting professionals kind of take it and run with it and saying, this is what we understand based on all this experience, all this spend, versus kind of your own personal experience. I feel like is really the two major layers to it.
Yeah, that's awesome insights on that. I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think PPC takes more of, time or expertise?
Both. Because it really, when you look at PPC in-house, and you're trying to have someone come in that maybe understands about PPC, they're there full-time, that's their full-time job, is to run it in-house, that's going to take a lot of time. Now, time versus expertise, if they have a lot of expertise in it, you're going to have to pay them a lot more money to be able to run that in-house, versus running it with an agency. You get a team of people that all have a ton of expertise and a ton of time to be able to work on it at the same time. So I really think PPC takes a good mix of both, but you can't do one without, you can't have a lot of time without a lot of expertise in PPC, and you can't have a lot of expertise without spending a lot of time in PPC too. Yeah,
great points. I think oftentimes the lure for PPC going in-house is kind of this. How could I describe all the conversations I've had? Basically, there's somebody who's I feel like I just need this person to spend tons of hours sitting in front of a computer. And if they do that, if they spend those tons of hours in front of that computer, then I'm going to have better PPC campaigns.
Right.
It's a very, I think you could call time-focused thing. And you also mentioned, you mentioned a few things for example, the control level and not having to explain to someone else, like that kind of thing, which I think it's also commonly forgotten that there's multiple ways to do it in-house when it comes to PPC. Number one is you have like you as a business owner do it, right? And you could technically bring anything in-house, right? You can cold call yourself as a business owner. You can cold text yourself. You can manage your payroll if you want to. You can do your own bookkeeping, right? Like you could, I mean, that's a way that you can get anything done in the business. And then there's the concept of hiring in-house. And this is kind of that concept where you have somebody and they're going to spend all their time. I feel like people that want different things tend to fall into one of these two buckets. The person who wants to do it themselves, usually a little bit smaller of a company, right? I think I was kind of that way for a while until I realized you can't actually grow a company that way. And some people don't want to grow a company, and that's fine. Yeah. Like you don't have to grow a company to 50 employees if that's not your vision, if that's not
their version of success, then great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you want to keep it really small, then you are going to have to wear a lot of hats, right? So some people envision like I could be the PPC expert, and that could be, how I do things. And then other people, they just feel like they just want this person that they can see down the hall that is just sitting in front of a computer all the time, and therefore must just be making massive progress on their PPC campaigns.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of things, not to try and sound too biased, but when it comes to an agency, a lot of things behind the scenes that really people don't realize that we do. Because we meet with them once a month, maybe we email throughout the month and talk about things, and they think that maybe that's all that we do when they don't realize that there's so many more layers to PPC behind the scenes too, like doing spend checks, doing bid adjustments, having all the integration set up so it goes to your CRM, making sure people are filling out the lead sheet that we provide to them. So all these different layers that when you take it in-house, you have to try and either figure out yourself or figure out your own version, whatever you feel like is going to be best for you. But there's a lot of things that we do that are extra things that maybe they might not realize. So when you take it in-house, you could be missing a few key important elements to make that successful.
Yeah, you're totally right that there's a lot of pieces there. I think our clients generally simplify what we do a little bit. As an example, I was talking to one of your clients recently, Aaron Gaunt. I was on his podcast.
Such a great guy.
Yeah.
He can't get enough of me. So we talk often. I love Aaron. He's great.
Which is strangely true. But one insightful piece of the conversation was like we started talking about our team size. And I told him, well, we have 25 or 30 people at this company, and he was like, wait, you have like 25 or 30 people like Jeff? I'm like,
there's more than just Jeff?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, you do realize that like Jeff is just like a smiling face that you talk to.
That's it. That's all I do.
And there's a lot that gets done on your campaigns that Jeff does not do.
Right.
And he was like, he was fine with it. But some people actually take a more, like, they just assume like, well, if Jeff's not doing it, then nothing's happening there or something. You realize like, well, we have like 4 Jeffs and then we have like 26 other people. What do you think those 26 other people do? Like it provides like a little bit of concept to like the ratio of like how much, the person that you talk to in the agency versus like the actual back end work getting done is. And it's honestly one of the more comical conversations I have is, someone comes to me like, I want to do it in-house instead, when they're just deciding not to work with us. I'm just like, oh, why do you want to do that? Tell me, trying to be nice about it. And they say, well, I have these other, I want this person to spend all their time on it. I want to get like all the attention and all the time. And then you ask a question like, well, what do you think that person's going to do with all that time? And they have no idea. They just have this hypothesis that somehow somebody spending all of their time is going to make this impact.
Like if the tab is open, they must be doing something, right?
Yes.
And whatever they're doing is more valuable. Yeah.
Which if you manage enough employees, you start to learn how not true that is. And also how sabotaging it can be to your culture to have someone not actually productive, the president that it sets for other people and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that they won't find things to fill their time with.
Yeah.
I'm saying it might not be valuable. Well, then you start to ask questions like, well, tell me about who you're going to hire for this role. They usually have some idea. They're like, well, I was going to find somebody that, I'm going to pay them, $60,000 or $70,000 a year. Or even worse, they're finding like some VA that theoretically has experience in this before or something like this. And you start thinking through and you're just like, well, there's a couple people that you could hire in-house. Option number 1 is you have somebody new. And we do a lot of this, right? We hire like people out of universities and stuff like that that are less experienced with PPC, and they come in. Whereas then you have to think like, what do you do with somebody like that? It's kind of like hiring like any role. Like let's just say you're going to take a transaction coordinator and you're going to get somebody with that experience. You need to have processes within your company for that person to succeed in. You don't take, it's like my favorite job posting I've ever seen is like the dentist office that's like hiring an intern marketer. And you look at the responsibilities, it's basically running their marketing.
Right.
As if that's going to like work, right? Like this,
Right.
like this person's not going to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It takes talent to recognize talent. And so you might not realize that, but they're not going to know what they're doing. So you need to like outline it, right? So if you're not going to hire that person, then you have to think like, what is it going to take for the person that's actually going to lead this? Then you're looking for a director level person. So then you have to kind of put your hat on. You have to think in the candidate's shoes. Okay, I'm this director level person. I'm capable of building processes and understanding how to run this in such a way that it works. What do I want to be paid? Probably like $130,000 to $150,000 or more, unfortunately.
That'd be nice.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's for anybody that can like truly invent these processes, that's what you're going to need.
Right.
The other thing, you're going to be pulling somebody out of a job that's probably pretty good, or they are really not good. Because somebody with these skills, they're not looking for jobs, right? It's like recruiting a really good salesperson. All right. So you're going to struggle to find them. Once you find them, do you think that person even wants to work for you? Like, you have to think that. Like, am I creating the environment where this person gets to the next level in their career?
Right.
I don't think you are. I don't think most real estate investments are there, because that person also has opportunities with other companies spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars per month on their paid ads where they can level up, or agencies where they can grow a team under them or something. They're probably used to having a team under them. And the last thing you want is now to have to bring on this director level person that's going to be unhappy because they don't have 4 employees working under them, because you have what should be like 1/12 of their time worth of work, but you need their expertise.
Right.
And I just don't think anybody actually thinks this through. When you really lay out all the individual pieces of what's necessary to make this happen in-house with hiring, it just doesn't make sense. And you're not going to find the right person. And when you do find the right person, they're not going to work with you. So the fact that someone was willing to work with you means they're probably not the right person. And I'm not saying you can't get lucky, but like it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah. It's more of a gamble than it is an informed decision or the best decision for the company direction. Regardless of your size, if you're taking it in-house and like you're saying, if you want to get that director level person, well, you could pay someone less to do it, but you're going to get less from it. Mm-hmm. So really the value that I see too is like, you can get someone that knows like 20% here and 30% here, and maybe they know 40% here, but they know 10% here. Or you can get an agency, again, a big push, right, for doing agency in-house.
Stop being so biased, Jeff.
Sorry, I can't help it. But it's someone that knows maybe 95%, and then you get someone else on the team that knows 98 and someone that knows 89. So you get a better percentage overall of just knowledge because you have such a large team helping you with it, for a cost that could be even less than hiring someone full-time throughout the entire year. So the benefit is a much greater benefit with more experience for less money. And like you're saying, you can get lucky, you can run it yourself, find a really good keyword list, maybe manage it on like a maximize conversions kind of campaign where you're spending a good amount on it. You're getting pretty decent lead flow, but then really taking it to the next level is what I feel like hiring an agency is too. Yeah.
And it also depends. I mean, there's bad in-house hires and there's bad agency hires.
Right.
Right. Like there's always,
so yes, we hear about the bad agency hires all the time.
Yeah. And unfortunately every time it's one of those, I don't know. I love it and hate it because I feel bad for like the people who run the agencies, but at the same time, it's kind of comical to hear about some of the stuff that goes down. I mean, sometimes when you're working with an agency, the reality of the situation is in-house. There's going to be more time dedicated to the campaign. That is absolutely true.
Right.
There's also less expertise. So there's kind of benefits and drawbacks of each, right? Agencies make mistakes. They don't get stuff done as quickly sometimes as you would be able to in-house.
It's interesting. I had a client who was working with an agency, and the agency made what I feel is just a lot of like blind assumptions about how the Google algorithm actually works. And so the client took these things as truth. So they said, if you change this in Google, if you like change your budget, for example, if you drop your budget down by half, This will significantly impact your Google algorithm. You won't get as good a quality leads. And the client then decided to cancel with the agency and go in-house with these beliefs intact. So now they had things that were assumptions that they put as truth, try to work PPC in-house based on those truths, and ended up failing. And then coming to us and saying, when I had their onboarding call, they're like, wait, this wasn't true? I'm like, no, all of these things that you believe are not true because they made assumptions and the agency was trying to hold on to things, which, was a bad experience for them. But we just were able to go from in-house to working with us, and they were just shocked. Like, you wouldn't believe the language they were using, just how impressed they were with the things that we were telling them and our level of expertise versus assumptions when it comes to PPC.
Yeah, no, it's a tricky thing, and it reminds me of I don't even know the exact story. I've heard like probably 10 variations of this story, right? But the story generally goes that there was like this machine in this factory, and this engineer was there, and he worked on it, and he ended up leaving at some point. And then like this machine breaks. Nobody can figure out how to fix the machine. Contractor after contractor comes, can't seem to figure it out. So they call up the old guy and they say, well, can you come fix this for us? And he says, yeah, it'll be $10,000. And so then he shows up and he finds a spot on the machine that's broken. He puts like a little X on it with chalk. And then he sends them their invoice, and it's like $1 for the chalk, like $9,999 for knowing where to put the X. Because that's the value.
Right.
Honestly, that's how I view PPC. Like, yes, there's a lot of work. I'm not saying it doesn't take a lot of time. Like, we have 30 people to fulfill for our clients for a reason. Like, there's it's not like all this can be done extremely quickly. At the same time, I think the expertise is way, way, way more valuable than the time. I think there's a lot to that. I think it's evidenced in the fact that for our own marketing, we use like the same process as we use for our clients. It's not like I do something special for myself and then I do it different for our clients. It's kind of like it is what it needs to be. But yeah, that's my opinion, at least. I mean, there's other aspects of digital marketing. Like, it could be argued that SEO requires like a baseline of expertise, but it's a ton of labor, like way more labor than PPC is. PPC is $10,000 for knowing where to put the X, and then like $1 for the materials required to do so. Right? It's a very expertise heavy thing because it's so nuanced, and there's also a lot of assumptions out there, and there's a lot of misinformation. And I think the reason is because, like, as a whole, PPC is just so complex that if you were to understand every facet of it in detail, like you're looking at an insane level of expertise that like most people are just not going to get to. So you have to make things black and white, right? You have to say like, well, I had this one experience where this one thing went better in this case, and one of the many things that was different was this one thing. So I'm just going to assume that that's the difference, and I'm going to live my whole life as if that's true when it's not.
Right. Yeah, and how many of us have those assumptions in our life in general, right? You were told one thing, you believe it's true, and then you believe it's true, so someone tells you the truth differently. I kind of view that as like I was Google Ads certified without a ton of experience. Like, I had some experience with it. Then when I actually dove in and did it, I'm like, wait, this is completely different from the actual black and white training I received. And then when I came over to Bateman, I realized how much more there is to PPC than I even thought doing it myself. So I kind of have my own experience in doing it in-house versus working with an agency, and it blew my mind, like how much more there was to do than I was doing at the time.
Yeah, one of the masterminds we attend is the Collective Genius.
Yes.
They have what they call the CG slap. Every time someone goes to the first mastermind, they get like slapped in the face, and they're like, "Oh shoot, I'm not as good as I thought I was."
Right.
It's like for all of our employees, we have like the Bateman slap. Like, people generally like in interviews, they're like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing." Then we bring them in and slap them a few times until they actually know what they're doing.
I was deer in the headlights for months, just listening to everything, just trying to absorb it and take it all in. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah. Let's talk about data.
Yes.
And the impact that has. There's quite a bit going around. I imagine when you did manage things in-house previously at your previous job, you felt like siloed on some level, as would most people. But what difference do you think it makes to have an agency working with a bunch of clients in similar situations compared to being on your own?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, like you're saying, it's just data. It's the massive amounts of data that you can collect working collectively with all these accounts doing almost the exact same thing.
You mean our company name means something?
Bateman Collective? You mean we're using collective data to make these informed decisions? Wow.
Or the podcast name means something?
What?
Okay, anyways, continue.
I thought we just made that up. Versus doing it yourself and slowly collecting data, like it's like one at a time, right? Knocking down one domino after the other, but really slowly, versus having 1,000 dominoes that are knocked down all at once and then using all that data to make decisions based on that. So it's really when it comes to using your own data and then separating it too, like let's say you think, all right, I'm going to try and run my own. I've seen how this works. And then you disconnect from the massive amounts of data that we have and run your own. You'd be shocked at how the algorithm changes and how your data changes based on the fact that you're no longer connected to all of the data flow that we have coming in all the time.
Yeah, it's a massive difference. To make things like extremely clear and tangible, I know we have too much of a bias towards talking theoretically. That's how I understand the world.
Right.
But we live in a real world with real things. An example of this, right? Let's just say you somehow find your director hire for managing your marketing, and you're somehow able to afford them and the people that they want to hire too, which has always been, as a business owner, like the most frustrating thing. You're like, I'll shell out all this money for this hire, and then it feels like all that person does is just tell you that you need to hire more people to get things done, and then it ends up being really, really expensive by the time. And then all the software tools, and at the end of the day, you're like 4 times deeper in than just the salary of the hire that you thought you had to pay to get something done. Right. So let's just say you get through all of that, and now you've got this like awesome digital marketing team, best in the business. All right, so one of the things that they're going to need to do, we'll just take one example, it's conversion rate optimization, right? Conversion rate optimization, you might hear it CRO. This is basically like split testing of landing pages and improving them and stuff like that. If you're like our average client statistically to do one split test on their landing page would take them about 9 months, somewhere between 9 and 12 months. If you want the split test to be based on lead quality and volumes, which I think is really important because there's a lot of ways to split test landing pages where you're going to influence quality negatively. But if you're just split testing based on volume, then you just end up with lower quality leads, something I'm really passionate about. Right. So let's just say you want to do that. Okay, now you have your team. They have all the resources. You got the design. You got the software to split test the landing page. You figure it all out. And then you sit there for 9 to 12 months while the split test goes. I can tell you how most people do it when they manage their own stuff in-house. They end up calling split tests way too early because apparently nobody understands how statistics work. And they think that statistics are like some optional thing if you want to be like like a nerd or something.
Right.
Not just like basic laws of the universe, like mathematical facts of like how testing works and probabilities of your assumptions being right for a winner of a test. Believe it or not, there's actual math that will tell you how probable it is that something works better than another thing.
It's not just based on my feeling.
It's not just based on your feeling or based on like pseudo facts.
Right.
Like, oh, it's just, it feel like we've gotten more leads this month from that versus that. So I'm going to cut that, which don't even get me started on split testing. Most of our clients, like over 90% won't see a split test through completion.
Right.
Because they're like, why would I just wait more time for it to prove what I already know? But you don't actually know that. But that's beside the point, right? Versus on our side, we can have that same team. And even those same people with the same level of talent, if you have a great marketing team, but you don't have a lot of data to feed them, you slow their progress. On our side, we can do a split test in 2 days, literally 2 days. Because you take what would have been 9 to 12 months and you make it happen 150 times faster. And what do you have? You have 2 days. And then, you know what? 2 days later, we could do another test. And 2 days later, we could do another test. Think of how much farther we can get and how much faster that can happen.
Yeah.
And I think that talent, when you have it in-house, just isn't fully utilized.
Sure.
Most of the teams that I've seen that are heavily driven by in-house, they end up doing a bunch of stuff that's not even worth doing because it's like they just need to like spend their time doing something. And it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Well, and now throw another wrench in there and imagine there's a market shift. Something changed. Something has to adjust. You're like, oh no, we were testing for this one thing. We didn't count on this other factor coming in. So now you have to adjust and redo that test or change the parameters of that test. And you're basically starting all over again. Versus with the collective data that we have, like you're saying, 2 days. We can kind of do one test and another until we figure out exactly what's going to work based on that shift too.
Oh, absolutely. It's staying ahead of the market's impossible
right.
on your own. Unless like there are exceptions to this, right? If you spend like 200, 300,000 a month, then you have sufficient data. I think in my mind, like 100-ish grand a month is sort of where in-house starts to become an option. Before then, it doesn't really make any sense.
Right.
At that point, it makes some sense. I think like all the like, and even of people I know, the best, some of the best marketing that I've ever seen was from in-house teams. They were spending close to $5 million a month at that point. I think if you have enough spend to have a person or to do it yourself, but not to have a team, I don't think it makes sense. I think once you pass that $100,000 a month mark, then it makes sense to have a team.
Right.
And if you have like a really solid director, I think you can make it make sense.
Yeah.
Finding that really solid director is really hard, but
Yeah. Well, and you said something really important too earlier. You said staying ahead of the market is impossible. It is. So there, you can do projections. You can kind of figure out what the market's going to do. But as soon as that change happens, how much more time is it going to take you to adjust and figure out how that works versus staying ahead? You can't really stay ahead of the market, like you said, but you can figure out, we can adjust that faster based on the data that we have too.
Yeah. What about algorithmic things? I know you had an experience recently with a client that saw the impact of removing some of the algorithmic benefits of being part of a data collective.
Right. I believe he said it sucked when he removed from our collective data, and just how much worse the data was on his own. And we have clients that have worked with us for a while, gone off and done their own PPC, and then they've come back again. They're like, we're so sorry. We didn't realize what all this took. But they also didn't understand the shift that happens when you're only relying on your own data, the small amount of data you have versus our large amount of data. I even had a client that was running his own PPC for a while. He was getting tons of leads that came in. The lead flow was great. He said, lead flow is great. We don't want to mess with that, but we're looking at better quality leads. Well, he came on with us, and the lead flow dropped, but the quality improved greatly because of all the data that we have that we've collected in this. And it wasn't so much about the lead flow as much as it was about the deals. Sometimes we forget that, right? It's not about how many leads you have per month. It's about, at the end of the day, how many deals do I have? How much is my return on investment? Not just how good is my lead flow.
Yeah. All right. One final topic that I want to touch on is, I don't even know how you summarize it, like action. Like I think that in real estate investment, more than anywhere else, like most entrepreneurs are like heavy action takers. And honestly, if you want me to like just call it straight as it is, that's like 90% of our clients. And it makes it hard for them to delegate things.
Right.
It also makes them hard. Like here's the crazy thing is, like, if you're in SEO and like you see a drop in rankings, like what do? Content and backlinks and optimize the page technically. If your rankings are doing awesome, what do? Content, backlinks, and optimize technically. Right? It's kind of the same thing, right? Everybody wants there to be like some major strategic shift. Like it doesn't, like in what I'm saying is true. Like more often than not, sometimes there is like, oh shoot, we got rid of that page and that page was getting a lot of SEO traction. That's the problem, right? Sometimes there's stuff like that, but oftentimes things flow up, things flow down. There's sample size issues, stuff like that. And I feel like our clients are just very, very action-oriented people, and it creates friction. And I think that's why some people struggle with working with agencies is like, we have this problem, like, oh, this month the leads weren't great or something like that. And they want to solve that problem so bad. And the last thing they want to do is just say, okay, agency, solve that problem for me, and just like sit down and just wait.
Right.
It's such a hard thing for that personality.
Yeah. And they want some type of email to say, these are the action items we took to fix this problem. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Or they want to do it themselves or something like that.
Yeah.
So when I see people like managing their own PPC in-house, like one of the most common mistakes is they're making way too many changes way too quickly. It's like you start like 100 tests and you don't even finish one of them. You just keep on moving on just to a new thing before it stops. But one of the biggest issues that we see internally is that people don't give campaigns enough time to succeed. When they do it in-house, oftentimes they do. And I think the reason is, like, when they're working with an agency, the thing that they change is the agency. When they're working in-house, what they change is like their campaign or something like that. And you can keep on making those changes and your campaign will eventually get where you're wanting to. But at the end of the day, like, they have more exposure over a longer time to the PPC versus when they're working with an agency, they like lose that patience because it just feels like madness. Right. This isn't working and I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Any action is better than inaction is what they feel like with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which that's good for getting deals. For PPC, sometimes action is what's going to hurt you, right? So you have to be like, a lot more like it's a sniper approach, not a shotgun when it comes to optimizations, right? You have to like figure out exactly what you're going to do. You got to be surgical about it, get it done, and then use the data to make your next smart decision. But it's slow, and seeing tests through takes patience.
Yeah.
If you want to actually finish a split test, but if you don't finish it, then why do you start it?
Right.
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of resources.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, it's a waste of money too, to not finish it. And I see a lot of times when clients don't finish out, our termed agreement, and we have that termed agreement, not because we want to keep you on for that amount of time, but because we believe that's when the growth really happens, is when you give the campaign enough time to succeed. If you cancel before then, or if you decide, this isn't really working for us, well, how do you know? You know based on your own experience and not based off of the countless number of tests that we've done and clients that we've had who have succeeded. So I feel like when it cuts off too early, that action of cutting it off early, they feel better about that than they do letting it ride out and trusting us based on the knowledge that we have and the experience we have when it comes to that termed agreement and saying, we know that this will happen. We can keep you on track for this to happen if we watch out for these indicators, right? Mm-hmm. And those indicators can keep us from going the wrong direction. We can say, oh, you have this many leads coming in, that's great, but look at these other things that you have too. You have these many opportunities now, or these many contracts now, versus just, like I said, lead flow before. So it's seeing it out to the end is really going to help with that return on investment, as long as we follow the indicators to indicate success along the path.
Yeah. I think that's something that might resonate with everybody listening to this, is think back to when you started your business.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through some period where they've invested a lot into their business, be that money, be that time, and they don't have anything to show for it yet, like enough revenue to make it worth it, et cetera. Every business goes through this period. Now just think, what if instead of starting a business and hustling and putting your own blood, sweat, and tears into like making this happen, what if you just hire an agency that starts businesses for you? That might be a thing. I don't think it's a thing. But let's just say, how many people in that tough time would give up if they did that? Because they don't feel like they have enough control. They don't feel like they're making progress because they themselves aren't making progress.
Right.
Now, as you grow in your business, you start to realize that other people making progress on your behalf is like the most beautiful thing that's ever existed in the world of business, because you can move forward without you doing it. And it's like the first person I ever hired, I like gave him some work to do, and then it came back and it was done and it was good. And I was like, mind blown. Right. And at every like level, you hire level people, and at some point you're done delegating tasks and you start to delegate projects, and then at some point you stop delegating projects and you delegate results. And when you can delegate results and actually see that come through, then it's like the epitome of happiness in a business. But you don't experience that right away, right? So I think everybody that's listening to this that had a business, at some point, if they weren't like controlling every aspect of it, just because of the faith that they have in themselves, that they wouldn't have in other people, they would have quit and they never would have gotten where they wanted to go in their business.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the viability of what they were doing, right? You have to get through the hard time to get to the good time. It's just sometimes when in the hard times, you only trust yourself. That's my hypothesis for why some people do better self-managing their PPC. I've actually talked to quite a few people that are very successful with it. So somebody's probably thinking, like, well, you're telling me all this stuff that's wrong about self-managing. Why is it that those people are successful? What I've seen from those that self-manage PPC, I think the personality that wants to get into the details, I think can be really good running a business. From what I've noticed, those people usually have extraordinary acquisitions and disposition skills. And when we take them on as clients, they do exceptionally well. So in that comes down to like them putting that level of care into those other aspects of their business as well. And then secondarily, they're more patient than they are working with an agency. Sometimes they're even like, because knowing so much about PPC and just looking in on how they're managing accounts and stuff, I'm like, you're literally just running in circles. You're not going anywhere.
Right.
But sometimes someone like just running, I picture it like if we were, let's just say we're trying to get from the first floor to the fifth floor. What we do is we go in the elevator, we stand in it, we get to the top, we get there. What they're doing is they're like running in circles in the elevator, like as if that's getting them there faster, right? They're just like, I'm just doing stuff, like taking all these actions.
I got to do something. Yeah.
But the fact that they're running circles in the elevator makes it so that they have the patience to get all the way to the fifth floor, and they don't give up on floor 3 and say, this elevator's never going to get there, because they're taking that action, versus if you're just working with an agency, you don't feel like you're taking that action. So I firmly believe that like so many people that self-manage, when I look at their PPC, it's nothing special. when I look at their other business processes and practices, they tend to be very impressive if they're having a lot of success. And when I look at their level of patience, because they're trusting in themselves, they actually have patience.
Right.
And it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I just imagine this analogy of running up the stairs, right? It's a lot harder to run up the stairs, but you can see your own progress, even though it's slower and it's costs you more energy. Versus, like you're saying, being in the elevator is going up a lot better and more efficiently, but you can't see it. You can't see the actual progress that's being made. You see floor 1, 2, 3, but you don't see how fast you're going up or anything like that too.
And you don't feel it. Yeah,
Right.
You don't feel like it's almost like I have this I have this like deep baked into me truth that I know isn't true. But I just believe so hard that if it's not like absolutely miserable to produce an outcome, then you weren't working hard enough. Like if it comes easy, then it wasn't worth it.
Right. Yeah.
I think so many entrepreneurs are like that. I don't know if it like correlates really well with success in entrepreneurship, but there's just so many of us that like if you were pushing yourself to the limit and then you achieve something, you actually believe you achieved it. Versus if it just happened, then you almost don't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's no struggle, there's no growth. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is absolutely crazy. Any last words you'd say about in-housing versus hiring an agency for PPC? Which one makes the most sense? What should you do?
Obviously, I'd say hire an agency. But if you want to try it yourself, like go for it. Like we'd be happy to take a look at it and say, this is what you're doing great. This is what you need to improve on. Decide if you want to work with us or not. It's kind of like left up to the person. So we don't say use us, trust us completely. We say try it yourself and then look at us and see how much better we can do and then kind of make the decision from there.
Yeah. I think another thing I would say is like move slowly however you move, right? If you're
Right.
listening to this, let's just say you do it yourself. You have your ad spend, you manage it, and you're thinking, should I work with an agency? I'd say try it out. Maybe don't give up on what you're doing yourself. Maybe start a test campaign with the agency. Understand that there's going to be some ramp up, right? Anytime you make a major change, like if I just bring a new hire into my company, I expect that the performance of that department is going to go down for a temporary period of time. And then it's going to go up again, right? And probably go up higher than it was before that hire, if it was the right hire.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be ready to see those things through. Likewise, if you're working with an agency and you're wanting to do it yourself, don't be one of our clients that made the dumb move of just like cutting the agency off and then just launching new campaigns, realizing that doesn't work, and then scrambling and going back to the agency and trying to figure it out as quickly as you can.
Right.
Like, it's not good, right? Like maybe dabble on the side, test it a little bit, and then jump into it.
Yeah.
If that's what you have to do, like so many of our clients that have managed things in-house, they understand it on a different level, and I really appreciate them as clients. And I think that's awesome. If that's what you have to do to be that person, then go do that and be that person. My official opinion is if you have enough ad spend to have a team in-house with a quality director and a couple other people to have the different disciplines necessary, I think you can nail it.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough ad spend to do that, probably don't try. And then I would say, like, make sure you always have a consultant that works with a lot of this stuff. Like
Right.
if you are going to do that, like at least have like that outside perspective that's auditing things. Even we do that. Like we just last week had someone, a really talented person that doesn't work at the company, come in and audit a bunch of our campaigns for clients, give us advice on what could be improved. Do I think we're good at PPC? Yes. But
Are we open to being wrong? Yes.
That's why we're good, right?
Right.
You need to have those third parties
Right.
kind of taking a look at things and helping improve, the strategies that you're running. So that's it for today's episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. For everybody listening, I'll see you next time.